Gonna Learn podcast coming 2022. So stay tuned, family.
Peace to everybody out there, man. It's your brother, man, Sean P. in the place to be. I got my brother Suit Tech and Chavis in the place, tp-Hsb. And we're about to get it in today, man. We got a nice presentation dealing with the relevance of culture, anthropology, and sociology. And we're going to get started, man. This is the tp-Hsb edition. Please like the show, share the show, tell a friend. We're live. Before we get going, though, I do want to introduce our dear brother Sutek in the place to be on the ones and twos. Sutek, what you got for the people, bro?
Hey, man, peace to the fam. Glad to see y'all in here. Please like the show. Hit that thumbs up button for us, bro. Please share the show. Share the show in your groups. Share the show on your timeline. We don't ask for no money. We don't ask for no donations. This is how you can repay us. If you want to repay us, we have merchandise, books, clothes, all that. My brother Chavis got a book out right now. My brother Sean got a book out right now. Patronize. Or if you can't do that, that's cool. We definitely understand. The least you can do, though, is thumb up the video and share the video. We're going to be getting into a presentation for my brother Chavis, so I'm going to let him get into it from there.
What's going on? Peace to the people. Pretty much gonna probably be a little lengthy, but it should be a very interesting and informative presentation with as far as the information goes. Get your pen and pad out, and I'm ready to get into it. So that's I need y'all to pull that up unless y'all were gonna wait till some people get in here some more or something.
Sutek got control.
I'll pull it up. Hold on, here we go.
While they pulling it up again, man, like the show, share the show, man, support the channel. You know what I mean? Let people know we got some good information over here. So we on the screen right now, Chavis. I'm out.
All right. So the title of the presentation is The Relevance of Culture, Anthropology, and Sociology by Chavis, tp-Hsb. That's me. And that there on the side is the unilineal evolutionism thing that we'll get into in a couple of slides, but just an image that just keep in your mind. You can go to the next slide. Try to just read them off. So the research question is: anthropology a science? What's sociology and why is it significant? What is cultural anthropology and what is its significance? How did it develop? What is unilineal evolutionism? Is there any contention with the theory of unilineal evolutionism? Who is K.K. Bunseki Fukiao? Is Fukuyama a pseudo or a scholar, and what does he have to do with cultural anthropology? Next slide. Hypothesis. I hypothesize that a thorough understanding of cultural anthropology and its development, along with sociology, should demonstrate why African Americans, Jamaicans, Caribbeans, or diasporic Africans should appreciate African scholars and put some respect on their names via contextualized interpretation of their work and its credibility versus un-African scholars who attempt to assess indigenous people's worldview, knowledge, behavior, and culture. What's in the next? All right. Anthropology. Anthropology, the science of humanity, which studies human beings in aspects ranging from the biology and evolutionary history of Homo sapiens to the features of society and culture that decisively distinguish humans from other animal species. Physical anthropology is a branch that concentrates on the biology and evolution of humanity and is discussed in greater detail in article Human Evolution. In the article of Human Evolution, the branch that studies the social and cultural constructions of human groups are variously recognized as belonging to cultural anthropology or ethnology, social anthropology, linguistic anthropology, and psychological anthropology. And that's just the source where this comes from. If you want to check that out, this is the source, screenshot it, or whatever you may. Sociology. Sociology studies the ways groups of people interact with each other and how their behavior is influenced by social structures, categories, age, gender, sexuality, and institutions. Sociology tends to look at the bigger picture, often studying institutions, educational, political, religious organizations, political movements, and the power of relationships of different groups with each other. Sociology is more solution oriented with the goal of fixing social problems through policy. So they pack a lot of stuff in sociology. There's a lot of challenging stuff be going on through that. Next, sociology and anthropology. Sociology and anthropology involve the systematic study of social life and culture in order to understand the causes and consequences of human action. Social and anthropology combine scientific and humanistic perspectives in the study of society, drawing upon various theoretical perspectives. Sociologists and anthropologists study areas such as culture, socialization, deviance, inequality, health and illness, family patterns, social change, and race and ethnic relations. Next. Critical theory approach. Critical theory is an approach of social philosophy that focuses on the reflective assessment and critique of society and culture in order to reveal and challenge power structures. The roots in sociology and literary criticism, which means you have to read something to do this, it argues that the social problems stem more from social structures and cultural assumptions than from individuals. It argues that ideology is the principal obstacle to human liberation. That's a source right there. It says the heart of the critical theory of society is its criticism of ideology. Their ideology is what prevents agents in society from correctly perceiving their true situations and real interests. If they are to free themselves from social repression, the agents must rid themselves of ideological illusion. Focusing on language, symbolism, communication, and social construction, critical theory has been applied in the social sciences as a critique of social construction in postmodern society. And that's the source on that. Cultural anthropology. Cultural anthropology is a branch of anthropology that focuses on the study of cultural variation among humans. It is in contrast to the social anthropology, which perceives cultural variation as a subset of a posited anthropological constant. The portmanteau term social Sociocultural anthropology includes the cultural and social anthropology traditions. Anthropologists have pointed out that through culture, people can adapt to their environment in non-genetic ways. So people living in different environments will often have different cultures, which much of anthropological theory has originated in an appreciation of an interest in the tension between the local particular cultures, uh, well, as the global, a universal human nature, or the web of connections between people in distinct places and circumstances. Culture anthropology is a major division in anthropology that deals with the study of culture in all of its aspects and that uses the methods, concepts, and data of archaeology, ethnography, ethnology, folklore, and linguistics in its description and analysis of the diverse peoples of the world. It's from Britannica, Encyclopedia site. Culture anthropology has a rich methodology, including participant observation, often called field work because it requires anthropologists spending an extended period of time at the research location in interviews and surveys. In his earlier work, like many anthropologists of his generation, Levi Strauss draws attention to the necessary and urgent task of maintaining and extending the empirical foundations of anthropology in the practice of field work. Next slide. Participant observation. Modern cultural anthropology has its origin in and developed in reaction to 19th century ethnology, which involves the organized comparison of human societies. Participant observation is one of the principal research methods of cultural anthropology. It relies on the assumption that the best way to understand a group of people is to interact with them as closely over a long period of time. That's the source on that. Ethnography is a piece of writing about a people. Ethnography. Ethnography is a piece of writing about a people at a particular place of time. Cross-cultural comparison. The Human Relation Areas Files, or HRAF, is a research agency based in Yale University. Since 1949, its mission has been to encourage and facilitate worldwide comparative studies of human culture, society, and behavior in the past and the present. The name came from the Institute of Human Relations and interdisciplinary program building at Yale at the time. The Institute of Human Relations has sponsors HRF's precursor, the Cross-Cultural Survey, as a part of the effort of develop and integrate science of human behavior and culture. Multi-sided ethnography. Ethnography that dominates sociocultural anthropology. Nevertheless, many contemporary social cultural anthropologists have rejected earlier models of ethnography as treating local cultures as bounded and isolated. These anthropologists continue to concern themselves with the distinct ways people in different locales experience and understand their lives. But they often argue that one cannot understand the particular ways of life solely from a local perspective. They instead combine the focus of the local with an effort of to grasp larger political, economic, and cultural frameworks that impact local lived realities. Multi-sided ethnography may also follow ethnic groups in the diaspora, stories or rumors that appear in multiple locations and in multiple time periods, metaphors that appear in multiple ethnographic locations, or biographies of individual people or groups as they move through space and time. It may also follow conflicts that transcend boundaries. Cultural evolution. The primary assumption of cultural evolution is that societies develop from simple to complex, albeit a different rate which explains why different types of societies exist in the world. These theories would later be proven untrue and rejected by future anthropologists such as Franz Boas and Bronislaw Malski. Whatever this is. Shut that up. Next slide. Unilineal evolutionism. Proposed in the 19th century, unilineal evolution is typically regarded as the first theoretical framework in anthropology. Originally proposed by E.B. Tylor, unilineal evolution suggests that all cultures evolve through three sequential stages: savagery, barbarism, and finally civilization. The belief that cultures move through various stages of development according to different levels of rational knowledge ended up with something resembling Euro-American lifestyles. Since Western societies had the most advanced technology, they put those societies at highest rank of civilization. Societies at a stage of savagery or barbarism were viewed as inherently inferior to civilized society, namely Euro-Americans. Although Morgan acknowledged that there is no biopsychological difference between races, he was in fact a racist. He believed that the people and races who were at the lower stages of cultural evolution were inferior because their mental abilities and brain size had not yet developed. This is the timeline right there. And it has lower infancy of human races, which is in savagery. Middle is the fishing, the discovery of fire, higher invention, starting at the bottom and going from the top. Higher invention of the bow and arrow, lower invention of pottery. Now we're in barbarism. Middle domestication of animals and planets, higher development of metal and tools. So you're still in barbarism. All that technology, and you're not even civilized yet. Phonetic alphabet and development of writing system. That's when you completely civilized, based on that metric. Next slide. Social Darwinism proposed that cultural evolution was a link to biological evolution. The central belief of social Darwinism was that there were innate biological differences that accounted for differences in intelligence, the capacity for language, and the behavior of different races and cultures. A view referred to as biological determinism. As a result, Euro-Americans were biologically culturally superior. Spencer also coined the term survival of the fittest and advocated for allowing societies to compete, thereby allowing the most fit in society to survive. With these ideas, Spencer opposed social policies that would provide assistance and relief to the impoverished and inferior races, as it would interfere with the evolutionary process. There are two main assumptions embedded in cultural evolutionism: psychic unity and superiority of Euro-American cultures. Psychic unity of mankind is a concept that suggests human minds share similar thought patterns and will produce similar responses to similar stimuli. This means that all people and their societies will go through the same process of development. However, cultural evolutionists believe that psychic unity was dependent upon the stage of evolutionary development a cultural group was at. Of course, the second assumption of Western superiority was not unusual for the time period. This assumption was deeply rooted in European colonialism and based on the fact that Western societies had more sophisticated technology. There's the source on that. Early years of anthropology. In the years of anthropology, the prevailing view of anthropologists and other scholars was that culture generally develops or evolved in a uniform and progressive manner. By the middle of the 19th century, Europeans had successfully explored, conquered, and colonized many heretofore before unknown to them parts of the globe. This global movement led to novel product and people that lived quite different lifestyles than the European proved politically and scientifically problematic. The discipline of anthropology beginning with these early society social theories arose largely in response to this encounter between the disparate cultures of quite different societies. Sir Edward Burnett Tyler, 1832 through 1917, a British anthropologist who put science of anthropology on a firm basis and discounted the degeneration theory. Tyler formulated a most influential definition of culture. Culture or civilization is a complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. Tyler correlated the three levels of social evolution to types of religion. Savages practicing animism, barbarians practicing polytheism, and civilized people practicing monotheism. Mm. Edward B. Tyler. Edward B. Tyler disagreed with the contention of some early 19th century French and English writers, led by Comte Joseph de Maistre. The groups such as the American Indians and other indigenous peoples were examples of cultural degeneration. Tyler believed that there was a kind of psychic unity among all people that explained parallel evolutionary sequences in different cultural traditions. In other words, because the basic similarities in the mental framework of all people, different societies often find the same solutions to the same problems independently, but Tyler also noted cultural traits may spread from one society to another by simple diffusion. The borrowing by one culture of a trait belonging to another as the result of contact between the two. Unilineal evolution refers to the idea that there is a sequence of stages that all groups will pass through at some point, although the pace of the progress through these stages will vary greatly. Groups, both past and present, that are at the same level or stage of development were considered nearly identical. Thus, a contemporary primitive group could be taken as a representative of an earlier stage in development of the more advanced types. The evolutionist program can be summed in this segment of Tyler's primitive culture, which notes the condition of culture among the various society of mankind is subject to apt of the study of laws of human thought and action. On one hand, the uniformity which so largely pervades civilization may be ascribed in great measure to the uniform action of uniform causes, while on the other hand, its various grades may be regarded as stages of development or evolution. Each of the outcomes of previous history and about to do is proper work in shaping the history of the future. Denigration theory of savagery, the primitives regress from the civilized state, and the uh, primitivism indicated the fall of grace had to be fought vigorously before social anthropology could progress. Sir John Lubbock, 1834 through 1914. A botanist and antiquarian who was a staunch pupil of Darwin, He observed that there was a range of variation of stone implements from more to less crude, and that archaeological deposits that lay beneath upper deposits seem older. He coined the term Paleolithic and Neolithic, the titles of Lubbock's influential book Prehistoric Times, as illustrated by ancient remains and customs of modern savages, illustrates the evolutionist analogy to Stone Age contemporaries. This work also countered the degenerate view in stating it is common opinion that savages are, as a general rule, only miserable remnants of nations once more civilized, but also, although they are some well established cases of national decay, there is no scientific evidence which would justify us in asserting that this is generally. Oh, tripping. Press the button. Ooh, I lost my spot. Justifies asserting that this is generally the case. Lubbock also advanced a gradual scheme of the evolution of religion, summarizing in terms of 5 stages: atheism, nature worship, totemism, shamanism, idolatry, and monotheism. Franz Boas. Unilineal evolution, also referred to as classical social evolution in the 19th century social theory about the evolution of societies and culture. It was composed of many competing theories by various anthropologists and sociologists who believe that Western culture is the contemporary pinnacle of social evolution. Different social status is aligned in a single line that moves from most primitive to the most civilized. This theory is now generally considered obsolete in academic circles. The early 20th century inaugurated a period of systematic critical examination and rejection of unilineal theories of cultural evolution. Cultural anthropologists such as Franz Boas, typically regarded as the leader of anthropology's rejection of classical social evolution, used sophisticated ethnography and more rigorous empirical methods to argue that Spencer, Tyler, and Morgan's theories were speculative and systematically misrepresented ethnographic data. Additionally, they rejected they have the distinction between primitive and civilized or modern, pointing out that so-called primitive contemporary societies have just as much history and were just as evolved as so-called civilized societies. They therefore argue that any attempt to use this theory to reconstruct the histories of non-literate, i.e., leaving no historical documents, people, is entirely speculative and unscientific. They observe that the postulated progression, a stage of civilization identical to that of modern Europe, is ethnocentric. They also pointed out that the theory assumes that societies are clearly bound and distinct, when in fact cultural traits and forms often cross social boundaries and diffuse among different societies, and is thus an important mechanism of change. Boas and his cultural history approach focused on anthropological fieldwork in an attempt to identify factual processes instead of what he criticized as speculative stages of growth. Global change. Later critics observed that this assumption of firmly bound societies was proposed precisely at the time when European powers were colonizing non-Western societies, and thus the self-serving many anthropologists and social theorists now consider unilineal cultural and social evolution a Western myth, seldom based on a solid empirical grounds. Critical theorists argue that notions of social evolution are simply justifications for power by the elites of society. Finally, the devastating world wars that occurred between 1914 and 1945 crippled the Europe's self-confidence / importance, I guess, after millions of deaths, genocide, and the destruction of Europe's industrial infrastructure, the idea of progress seemed dubious at best. Idea of progress. Next one. Major objections and concerns. Thus, modern socio-evolutionism rejects most classical social evolutionism due to various theoretical problems. The theory was deeply ethnocentric. It makes heavy value judgments on different societies, with Western civilization seen as the most valuable. It assumes all cultures follow the same path or progression and have the same goals. It equated the civilization with material culture, technologies, cities, etc. It equated evolution with progress or fitness based on deep misunderstanding of evolutionary theories. It is contradicted by evidence. Some, but not all, supposedly primitive societies are arguably more peaceful and equitable, democratic than many modern societies. Because social evolution was posited as a scientific theory, it was often used to support unjust and often racist social practice, particularly colonialism, slavery, and the unequal economic conditions present within industrialized Europe. Fukiya Bunseki. Fukiya Bunseki was born in Minianga, Democratic Republic of Congo, and holds a degree in cultural anthropology, social administration, library science and education, and community development. So he has bachelor's, he got PhD, there, like there's a lot of stuff there he got. He has been initiated into three major African education systems, Limba, Kimba, and the Kempasi, and founded the Luyalongo Luala Kumba Nisi Institute, dedicated to exploring the documented traditionally accumulated Congo teachings for the post-colonial society and its institutions. Fukiya writes, by far the most successful of the Bantu states of West Central Africa was the Congo, which developed a highly advanced iron technology, agrarian, complex trade systems, and elaborate political institutions well before the arrival of the first Europeans in the region in the late 15th century. The high level of material culture attained by Congo state by the 16th century has been commented upon by both oral chronicles and documentary evidence. In the views of one commentator, in terms of natural resources, Western Europe was poor, and in terms of ethnic development at the time, in many respects, more backwards than advanced. He's citing somebody else there. Then Africans, including those of African descent, must love the study of their languages if they wish to talk honestly about themselves and about where they are. For all systems, codes of their society are coded, tied in these languages: Makulo, Mamo, Ma Bimba, Bia, Kimvuka, Kiao, Makangwa, Mu Ndinga Zozo. To study language in the world, Kinte, Kia, Kanga, Yi, Kutulu, Makulu, Mafu, Bia, Kimfuka, Kia, Muntu, Inza. I ain't gonna read all of them because we'll be here all day. Learning is an accumulative process of coding and decoding cultures. Therefore, it is necessary to study the language that expresses those cultures. And I would read it, and I feel like I'm contradicting it, but I'm gonna read it anyway. Longuva, Longuka, Inzila, Yang, Nyam, Dia, Kunisia, Kingu, Wa, Nkanglaluku, Yi, Nkutulu, Makulo, Manzaila, Ma Muntu. I got me out here speaking Congo or whatever. Next. Congo concept of time. Being that Foucault is an accredited continental African scholar with an education in cultural anthropology as well as experiencing multiple initiatory schools of thought, it would only benefit us to utilize such competence to extract an understanding of Congo worldview, and how else would we gain an understanding of the Congo concept of time? Are there other Congo scholars documenting this knowledge? Have you ever heard of those who dismiss Foucault, offer you another African scholar in his place? Or do they depend on what white folks have to tell us about Congo concepts? Here in his one of his writings, he writes, it must be understood if one is to have a proper comprehension of the Congo conceptualization of time, for all too often African culture, religious, and philosophical systems are poorly understood in the Western literature on Africa because of the lack of understanding of key linguistic concepts. The Bakongo recognize four realms of time: cosmic, natural, vital, and social time. So I'm just going to give an example of him explaining time. In contrast to the mundane aspects mentioned about the concerns of the chapter, is the realm of time come from the esoteric world of the Congo, the world of the Baganga, the masters and the initiated ones, the vehicles through which such knowledge was disseminated were the initiation schools and the centers of higher learning, which were forbidden to outsiders. Thus, knowledge of their teachings were inaccessible to Europeans and all foreigners. Because of their nature, these institutions of higher learning were ultimately suppressed by the colonial powers, and their teachings went underground. Fortunately, I was privileged to have been initiated into one of them, and at the feet of the masters, I learned in a period of 10 years what is expressed in this essay about Congo concepts of time. Other references are based on my personal work and experience with Congo culture, of which I am a member of by blood and well as an academic interest. The Congo concept of time described here is deeply rooted in our worldview, our cosmology, which was the core base of the curricula at all institutions of higher learning. Its centrality in our knowledge system stems from the fact that time lies at the core of our understanding of not only the universe and its process, dingo of creation, transformation, and functioning, but also of life itself and its functioning. It is through time that both nature and man become comprehensible to us. Time validates and provides truth to our existence. This chapter discusses cosmic, natural, and vital, and social time among the Bakongo. You can go to the next one. I just captured each dynamic that he focused on. So Musoni time is the beginning of all time. Congo mythological tradition refers to this period as Tandu Kia Luku Lawala Mba Kalunga, literally the period of Kalunga cooking, the boiling era of magmic matter, Foucault. And this is the period during which the void, La Lungo, Lunu, Unu, was filled with matter's infusion. Here, something was brought to my attention where there was an issue with self-citation. When you're the only one writing on a certain thing, you're gonna have to cite yourself on it. So this is not nothing new in academia. Is you look it up, there's plenty of journals where it is being done. So to try to called him out for citing himself. Who's he supposed to cite? Who else wrote that? Wrote anything about the subject? If you know anything about scholarship, you wouldn't try that game. But next one. Calotype. Calotype is the second stage in formation of the planets. So this is their understanding of time and planets and all that. So you got to just accept that. After the completion of Earth's cooling came the calotype stage. During this era, the Earth witnessed great changes. Life in its lowest form, microscopic beings, algae, began to exist to be cala during this period. The soil was moist and the water could be found everywhere. Black is the symbolic color of this era. The second great dam of time. At this cala stage, the world saw the sun rising from the depth of the universe, from the spiritual world of our ancestors. The ancestors' world, the lower world, or from the deep, from the lower world, and the physical world, the upper world, bringing not only the light, but also hope, joy, and creative energy into the world. Again, the conceptualization of cosmic time has direct social relevance. The Kala position is seen in the position at which all biological beings come into being, Makula. It is the position of all births. It is for this reason that birth of a child, Mwana, in the Congo, Betu Congo society, is conceived of in the same way one sees the sun rising in the upper. I can't see the rest, but go to the next one. That's Tukulu time. Okay, Tukulu time is the third stage of formation process of planets, worlds, and their formation that followed Kala's era. During this period of cosmic time, our planet matured, Kulu. Life that occurred under the previous Kala era has now matured and prospered. Animals also occurred at one point during this Tukulu era. This stage occupies the third position in the Congo cosmogram, the Kinga. The symbolic color of this era, the third great dam of time, is red, which symbolizes growth, maturity. Tukulu literally means let us grow or mature. Tukulu incorporates the V zone and the most critical zone in the success of all biological things, especially human beings. And that's the cosmological time formation. And the key at the bottom of the planets, Amazonian time, the first stage at the bottom, corresponding to the Big Bang era. Kala time, second stage era, when biological life is in its microscopic form became a reality. Tukulu, third stage era, when animals occurred on the planet. Luvimba time, fourth stage era, when Maganu, ancestor of the human race, occurred on the earth in the upper world. And it's just a circle. It goes in, it's cylindrical, cyclical, or something like that. Go to the next one. This is the fourth stage and the last period of era that the planets undergo to complete its formation process and transformation. It follows the Tulu time, ascending into the Congo School of Higher Learning. During this era, the ancestor occurred on the planet. This Maganglu was an androgynous being. Complete by itself. This mythological being was two in one, male and female, through continuous search for rituals Maganu was split into two separate beings, Lumbu and Mazida, complete by itself, a female and male. At the point that the planet Earth became a living whole, complete by itself, Lumbu and Mazina, to maintain their oneness as they were in Maganu, decided to remain together in life, married, became wife and husband. He cites himself. There's another writing that he wrote, is another essay or paper. With this new beginning of life, togetherness, the circle of cosmic time and was completed, and a new stage of time began, vital time. However, before entering into the discussion of vital time, a point of clarification needs to be made concerning the way Congo cosmological teachings explain the bareness of some celestial bodies, as explained above. The planet Earth became fully alive only because, I can't see that word, completed the cycle of going through all four cosmological stages. Thus, the explanation given for the celestial bodies that are fair today, such as the moon, the Mars, is twofold. They did not complete the four great stages of the cosmological wheel, that they would concluded that their formulation and transformation process, therefore. So basically, he's just explaining how the Congo perceived why the moon was the way it was when the life was running and whatnot. And that was in the last stage of time. That's another diagram. The Bantu concept of time, the main stages of vital time, and the key at the bottom. The Hsb, you just see how it goes in a circle. You got the conception stage, the birth stage, the growth, maturity, death stage. We go to the next one. And again, it explains that it's all similar. So the Congo hourly time segmentation system starts at the Ndingu, Inisi, and it goes Makilu, and Sigluka, and Kinsina. It just goes in that same pattern. So I don't want to chop up we'll be here all day. Next one, next slide. And this just goes into how they was talking about, it's like a roll, the scroll time zone that contains past, but that contains the great dam of time, accessible to the Muntu through Zingo, the Zugunu, the rolling and unrolling process that unfolds the past. I thought that was deep how they do it like that. Conclusion: the Bantu time concept discussed here may appear to be a completely new thing, not only to lay readers of African thought and philosophy, but also to those who labor for life and in those fields. The reason could be, among others, to paraphrase what a U.S. scholar pointed out, lack of understanding of African cosmology. Time for the Bakongo can be discussed from all aspects of life because each one is an event created an agent of time. The following conclusions may be drawn about the Bakongo concept of time. Time is an ongoing cosmological thing, and as such, cosmologically speaking, time is the duration between completion of a formation process of the first planet and its transformation, and the completion of the formation process of the last planet and its transformation into the four great steps of the cosmogram. A planet will remain naked without life until these stages are completed. So the next one got three more things. Time is an ongoing biological thing, and as such, biologically speaking, time is the lifespan between the conception of the first pregnancy of a Lumba Musita, and the first couple in Congo mythology, the conception of the last pregnancy to occur on the biological rope of the human race. Each living species has its own biological lifespan on the timeline path. Time is an ongoing social thing. And as such, socially speaking, time is the duration between the point of occurrence of the first social event, the dungu, on our planet, and point of its last occurrence. Time is an ongoing natural thing, and as such, naturally speaking, time is the duration between the point at which nature became fully alive and able to sustain biological life and the point at which it will be unable to perform such function. This will be the greatest conclusion in the history of our Earth on its line path. So time is in around us because we are parts of the universe and are parts of time. Next. In closing, in sociological critical theory approach, assist in giving those of African descent a framework and methodology to effectively challenge outdated and racist views toward African history, culture, and worldview. Cultural anthropology is a tool necessary to discern exactly what other cultures' conceptualization consists of. We must be aware of ideological priming that unconsciously takes place via our acculturation as African Americans, while scientific Western ideologies may have their perks, they are not without flaw. One must always keep in mind who developed these concepts and when they were developed and how they were developed. Adhering to an ideology takes place via its values, which defines the values as being beliefs or concepts that relate to desirable objectives or behaviors. Adopting these westernized values is a non-conscious process that takes place through complex influences. These influencing processes are multiple but operate for the most part beyond the field of consciousness. These non-conscious influence are forms of what somebody called Beauvois and Renati coined as propaganda claque. This latter corresponds to the dissemination of effects, values, and ideas not through argumentation, but by relying on non-conscious influence processes such as evaluative conditioning, modeling, and simple exposure of priming. This suggests that Westernized paradigm has created cognitively implicit biases to make a person who subscribes to it fully via acculturation essentially be primed by racist outdated science, typical view on things that don't fit into it, like African worldview, to the extent that they will dismiss their own African scholars in the same matter as people they think as their enemy. I think that is it. Except with the sources, got the sources at the end. Another page of sources there in the video with the book at the end, and that's it. Somebody got they saying in the chat.
Word, give me a second. There's something I want to pull up. Gotta go back and find it.
Serious about the money. Serious about the money.
Money, I'm a crowned out 1100. What we doing, getting money? What we doing, getting money? They doing hating on us, but they never cross. EMG, country band, this antenna the ball.
Serious
Turn up for that chick.
Serious about the money. Serious
Turn up for that chick.
Serious about the money.
Nigga, we smash on whoever. Ice so cold, by my chain, a little sweater. I'm done.
That's a wrap, man. Appreciate y'all taking the time to sit and do all that.
Hold up, I got some stuff. I get back to it. I can't remember the slide though.
Boy, y'all taxes finna be fat.
No, that man, oh my nephews and stuff, kid. I got photo. My shit fat. My shit is nice though. Don't get me wrong.
Hey, boy, I thought it. I was like, damn, that's about 10. I ain't know they had that
That's
many.
my nieces and nephews. I wanted to put them all on there. I told them niggas I put them all on there so they can see themselves on the TV.
Show them some love.
You know what I'm talking about?
It was a slide on there that was talking about specifically about the development of culture in a primitive state.
Which one?
It was before Fukuyama. I can't find it. I'm looking for it.
What did I say though? What you want to elaborate?
Because it talk about it says something about the different stages of man. So if they were nature.
Oh, the one with the like with the little thing on there going up.
Nah. The nature was one way. Technology was another way. The way they saw the world. The way dudes saw the world.
You talking about the Tyler dude?
I think it might be. It wasn't unilateral evolution, which is the mistake that a lot of people make, and I don't think people understand that. People think that civilizations are supposed to grow at the same pace, and that's the mistake that's being made when people are observing other people's work.
Right.
When you're looking at work, you're looking at work from your worldview. You're not looking at work from outside of the worldview or the cultural worldview that you've inherited, adapted to, and assimilated to, and argue for. And you don't understand the mistakes that you actually make. Anthropologists can't afford to make those mistakes. That's why they deal with certain aspects of things so they can have cultural context to help them explain what they're actually uncovering, especially with archaeology.
Right.
Because the past can't tell their story. They ain't here.
All you can do is
the environment.
It's project.
Man, what slide was that where you had a slide on here? This slide out of place. You had a slide on here that says something about, for instance, like man. You talked about man, and you talked about.
Look on that Lubbock. Look at that. The one that say Lubbock. That dude Lubbock on there. Yeah, that's the one. Let me go look on my
A botanist and aquarium, blah blah blah.
Is that one?
This work, although we'll emphasize the case scientific evidence, the evolution. Lubbock also advocated graduate scheme of evolution religion, summarizing the 5 stages: atheism, nature worship, totemism, shamanism, idolatry, and monotheism. No, I mean it was some. Yeah. Hold up. Let me show my screen. Let me share my screen. Y'all should be able to see my screen.
Yeah, we see it.
All right. So there was something in here that stood out to me. It says Lubbock, botanist and an aquarium who was a staunch pupil of Darwin. He observed that there was a range of variation of stone implements from more to less crude, and that archaeological deposits
Mama hairspray for my hair, and then she put some water in it.
That lay beneath upper deposits seemed older. He coined the terms Paleolithic and Neolithic. The title of Lubbock's influential book, Prehistoric Times, all illustrated by ancient remains and the customs of modern savages. This key, savages, illustrates the evolutionist and analogies to Stone Age contemporaries. This work would also counter the generationist views in stating it is common opinion that savages are, as a general rule, only miserable remnants of nations once more civilized. But although there are some well-established cases of national decay, there is no scientific evidence which would justify us in asserting that this is generally the case. Lubbock, and then it talks about the advance, but this ain't it. This is one point because he summarized the terms of 5 stages. See that? Lubbock also advanced a gradual scheme for the evolution of religion, summarized in the term of 5 stages. And then he goes out to set out atheism, nature worship, shamanism, idolatry, and monotheism. He puts that as a hierarchy. What I'm trying to understand is, I'm trying to understand is why would atheism, nature
Be
worship,
first.
right? Well, psychologically speaking, you're not born with any type of religion or understanding of any of those things. Those things are culturally embedded in you when you inherit those traits. So I could see that, but then he goes to nature worship, shamanism, and then idolatry, and then monotheism as last. So if you look at the evolution of man, he's basically saying this is how man works. You have no beliefs, or you have no theisms, and
you
then
got to get sophisticated to get to have these beliefs. That's crazy. You right.
And I thought that when you went over there, I was like, hold on, it don't make sense. But that's one part of it. And then many people don't know this dude, the Franz Boas dude, about the unilateral evolution. You've heard this on another show, but the emphasis of unilateral evolution deals with the fact that when we're researching history, this is the stance that many people take and make the mistake in their arguments because they can't identify with the cultural context or all right. So let me rephrase this. This is how we can catch James P. Allen and Budge and others. What's that white boy name that people like to use all the time?
We just said that boy name the other day. The one with the Christ thing. What's that dude's name?
What's his name?
They said it.
Gerald Massey.
Right.
So people like Gerald Massey and all of them, right? Budge, all of them. This is how we catch them up in their generalizations of what something means in ancient Egypt. When they're translating and transliterating and translating text, they are looking for an English equivalent. They have always been looking for an English equivalent to properly understand Egypt and the Egyptians. So they will modernize Egyptian words and leave out cultural context instead of going to look for the equivalent in other African words or other African cultures. They skipped all of Africa to generalize and be subjective toward their own natural culture and biases. So when you go in the text and you're looking at these texts, for instance, the Book of the Dead, there's many errors in there. There's even mistranslation of words in Budge's work and others. And that's because they don't understand who Africans are. They don't understand African culture because they're Europeans fascinated with ancient history. They have no cultural ties. So the problem with that is when anthropologists and archaeologists are trying to uncover pieces of history that they have come into contact to through digging or excavations or whatnot. They need cultural context to help them fully understand a people who can no longer speak for themselves. I let you hear that directly from an anthropologist's mouth on a previous show. it's that big of a deal to belittle it to something that's naive, or to argue just because of people's emotional position and stance against something, to be anti something, right? You will miss the bigger picture and point of why this presentation is even in existence. Because it builds on a body of, like I said before in the chat, it builds on a body of knowledge, or builds on a body of information that has already been put before a lot of you who've already bear witness to that information. So to sit here and generalize certain things, or have a mindset that what is it, that all right, these people are this, these people are that, you can't identify that, because culture is key in ancient times. It ain't genetics. They don't have genetics yet. They have no
Can't even
understanding.
identify anything.
Yeah, they're not identifying people by genetics. This is a modern science.
These sources is 2021. You talk about soft science. Psychology is a soft science. So like, you want to play that game, it's a double-edged sword. You got to be careful with that hard and soft science. But it is a soft science. No one's denying it. But we heard the root word was science. It's still a science. It's not a pseudoscience like, doing body language. That's pseudoscience. So I have no issue with the soft science craziness.
Man, that's
You going
that
in?
whole
Get on my goddamn
level. In
nerves,
order
man.
to, yeah, you just running amok, bro. Dude was just rambling.
Yeah.
He ain't even listen to what you had to say. He just took a position of he just took a hard left.
I
He
seen.
he wanted to disagree.
I don't see what he disagreeing with though. Like, you obviously wasn't paying attention, because that's in your favor, black man. Like, you going against yourself and your own interpretation of what's for you.
So it says here, later critics observed that the assumption of firmly bounded societies was proposed precisely at the time when European powers were colonizing non-Western societies, and was thus self-serving. Many anthropologists and social theorists now consider unilateral cultural and social evolution a Western myth, seldom based on solid empirical grounds. Critical theorists argue that notions of social evolution are simply justification for the power by the elites of a society. Here's my thing about this whole notion of where we adopt this worldview. And I want you to really think about what I just said, where we adopt this worldview, right? So we know we have a Western worldview and mindset. So when you hear people say Blackology as an example, they say Blackology to Afrocentricity. Why? Because Afrocentricity is giving you a different methodology, or a framework to culturally be able to dismiss a different worldview, to see things from your perspective, right? Because that is the only way that you should be able to look at the world, is through your own lenses and not the lenses of those who impose that vision on you. They might escape a couple of people's heads.
Right.
It's a work. It's a it's a framework, but not only a framework, but it's a methodology that's based on helping you to be able to look at things from your worldview. What's wrong with that? If I look, all right, as an example, Chavis is in Houston. I'm in Nashville, and Sutek is in Chat. Life in Chat ain't life in Nashville, ain't life in Houston. We might go through some similar stuff, but what we see on a day-to-day basis isn't the same.
It's different geographies, different demographics. It's all that plays a factor. All that You know what I'm saying?
Right. But if we only see things like the rest of the world from how we see things in those geographical locations, we don't have a proper understanding of what it is that we're trying to analyze, critique, and validate. I wouldn't even say validate, but dismiss. So when you get to, for instance, Fukuyama, you brought him up. I don't think people really understood what you brought him up for, so you're gonna have to answer that again. But in one of his writings, he states, by far the most successful of the Bantu states of West Central Africa was Congo, which developed a highly advanced iron technology, agrarian culture, complex trade system, and elaborate political institution well before the arrival of the first Europeans in the region in the late 15th century. The high level of material culture attained by the Congo state by the 16th century has been commented upon in both oral chronicles or oral history and documentary evidence. In the view of one commentator, in terms of natural resources, Western Europe was poor in terms of economic development at the time, in many respects more backward than advanced. And it says Africans, including those of African descent, must love the study of their languages if they wish to talk honestly about themselves and about what they are, for all systems codes of their society are coded, tied in these languages, right? So then he goes and he lists those languages. Now, if you pretty much go through the first sentence or the paragraph, someone's going to say blackology. They're going to cry foul because it says Africans, including those of African descent, must love the study of their languages. Why I gotta love the study? You know, they're going to give you that. Why I gotta love the study of our languages? Because you were stripped of your native tongue. Therefore, you really don't have anything to actually go off of. And then it says to study language is the most important process of learning the art of coding and decoding social systems of human societies. You've heard other
Well, look, though, he says he answers that question. And why? He said, if you want to be honest with yourself, bro, that is that simple. If you want to be honest with yourself and you want to study it, that's the reason. You know what I'm saying? That's why you got to do it. But otherwise, you don't want to be honest with yourself. You just want to generalize and just dismiss it and call it bullshit, which is what I hear. Go ahead.
Correct. Oh my goodness gracious. All right, so then he goes through the concept, the Congo concept of time, right? Every civilization across this planet that developed has some type of understanding or concept of time. So we're not generalizing it by saying everyone. We're being specific and speaking to a people that is in a central location that is dealing with their worldview, their mindset, their working framework to answer how they saw time. Just like how they saw the universe, or just like they saw the sun, the moon, and the stars. Doesn't matter. This is their mindset. So why is this important? Because anthropology depends on cultural context to help it solve things it can't solve based on history. So it says, being that Fukuyama was an accredited continental African scholar, you say here with degrees or expertise in cultural anthropology. You say a bunch of stuff here, but that's neither here nor there. It says time in the Black experience. It must be understood if one is to have a proper comprehension of the ways the Congo conceptualized time. For all too often, African cultural, religious, and philosophical systems are poorly understood in the Western literature on Africa because of a lack of understanding of key linguistic concepts. So it goes back to what he said in the initial slide, languages. But Congo recognized 4 realms of time: cosmic, natural, vital, and social time. They're gonna call it pseudo.
But how? That's pseudo calling it pseudo. That's pseudo, because you just denying a person the agency of their culture. Like, that's crazy. That's something I cannot get down with and understand. That's pseudo to me, because it's disingenuous. You're not even attempting to try to understand. You're just characterizing it and minimizing and throwing away. Oh, that's just this. No, man. You can't. Like, that's different. It's distinct. I digress, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
All right.
man.
So the mind frame, right? We got to get out of the mind frame of microwaving information. We have to understand that it is critical for us to understand early man based on where they are located. We need to quit generalizing early man and saying early man where, motherfucker? Early man where? Be specific. Early man in Africa. Where in Africa? Early man in South Africa. Okay, now we can go where? To South Africa, and we can deal with early man in South Africa. What was early man in South Africa doing? Early man in South Africa, based on historical record and what we have evidence for, early man in South Africa was living in caves right off the ocean front where they could, escape, people trying to harm or nature trying to harm them, and they preserved themselves in pockets of caves where they drew artifacts, created, fire, cooked food, ate shellfish. Well, I wouldn't necessarily, because you could say, because in one of those caves, I believe there's a kitchen. Look, what would we deem ancient kitchen, where they would have actual pit where they would actually cook and tend to things. Or we can be more specific and talk about early man coming out of the, migrating somewhere along those lines. But the fact is, when we talk early man, we need to be specific. As early man developed, they began to have an understanding about other things around them as they migrated away from where they were. But remember, early migration was only based on threats. If a threat wasn't posed to early man, there was no need for them to move from the places that they were at. So everything was about conserving or preserving life and understanding the things around them. They knew had to learn what danger was and all of those things. So we need to quit generalizing. If we're talking anthropology, right? Because when we're having these conversations, we got to bring. That's what I mean by people don't understand the fields of science, the core fields of sciences that helps advance the conversation. It can't be one particular thing, and the damn show don't involve feelings.
And I ain't seen that nowhere in there. I ain't seen feelings nowhere in the methodology. I ain't see all that. That was.
Let me see if I can do this live. Subfields of anthropology. Your computer be listening to you when you be talking and shit. So I don't know why.
That's how I be feeling.
I don't know why I try to act like it didn't hear me saying what I'm saying. All right, so let me get out of this real quick and go back. So I want people to understand when we be talking about people, I always try to get people to go in this direction. So when you're talking about a people, you got to talk about archaeology, biological anthropology, sociocultural anthropology, linguistic anthropology.
They pseudo. What did they say? African studies down there? What was that in there? Oh, you gotta study that. You want to talk about that? Okay. Gotta take African studies, huh?
It said that in each one of these subcategories.
Every one of them.
These social, cultural, and linguistics, you're gonna get it there. And archaeology, you should get Africa should show up everywhere. The only one that's not going to show up is when you're talking about biological anthropology, and that's talking about basically genetics and stuff. And then that has subfields in its own right. But we don't argue like that. We want to take, for instance, this is how we want to argue. For instance, people want to talk about Egypt as an example, since that's still being talked about. They want to just deal with this biological anthropology. They never want to get into the archaeology. They don't want to get into the other fields that help prove this. And you can't use biological anthropology to prove who a people was, because culture is key.
Always.
So,
what language they speak?
Man,
you don't know.
And I ain't gonna know. So I want to go a little bit further. I'm trying to see if this other thing could come up. So I ain't got time. But anyway, man, I just wanted to kind of like hit people off with that, man, because the whole thing about how we look at history has been misrepresented.
Right.
And I don't know if the sister watching or not, but Avril, she says, "Hi, Sean. Do you address nanoparticles and nanotechnology in the vaccines in your book?" Yes. There are people, including a friend who I spoke about, that is anti-vax, who believe this technology can be used to deploy, activate in different body parts of the body to trigger a heart attack.
Nano just means small. Small technology. It's not. Talk about molecules.
Yeah. And then supposedly this is how they will control. And they're saying this is how they're supposed to control the population.
With back, yeah, they're gonna keep people from getting sick. That's the goal. To keep people out of hospitals, control hospitals from being overwhelmed, and keep people from dying. You want to control people from dying. You don't like people. Dying isn't a good. It's not. You can't make a lot of money off people dying.
And that technology has been in existence since 1987. It sounds comical and unbelievable, but certain people believe they have the technology to carry this out. And you will never get a source. I hate being asked those questions. I ain't gonna lie to you, but I just try to answer them and move on. Yeah, it's in the book. I got an NO in there talking about vouchers. So this is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. You know what I mean? Tep-Hsb came through, hit us with a nice little presentation. Many people need to probably go back and rewatch that a couple of times to take some notes. I know Sutek, he got something coming up. I don't know when he dropping, but when can we expect this work?
For the most part, it's been done.
Yeah, he over here trying to get codes and all that. When we gonna get this work? Oh, man, he mute. He mute now. He didn't. You ain't. Hey, listen, bro. You ain't down the street from the smoke shop no more.
We got. He ain't even on that right now,
bro. You ain't at the smoke shop no more, bro. He listening though. He listening. Smoke shop ain't right out. Just open your garage and just take a right.
They not legal out there. Ain't no dispensaries out there, huh?
Nah, he ain't dispensing it.
Yeah, I didn't. Tennessee, huh? Y'all ain't got it all like us. Stragglers. Way behind. Wow. So living a good life.
something like that.
That's
So,
it, man.
yeah, I ain't gonna hold nobody up, man. You ain't gonna hold nobody up. So, you know what I'm saying? That's
Drop
all.
that. Keep it moving. Next one coming. Something else. Working on the next something else. Whatever need to be addressed.
So make sure y'all lock in, get ready for the next bill. Who we got up? We got old boy up in the building. Make sure you get Beautiful Lessons of Kimoyo, Spell Masters. What SARS-CoV-2 taught me. Spell Masters Institution Coloring Book 1. Religious Belief Revisited by tp-Hsb. All right, make sure
Get
you
that right there.
get Comprehension Book 1. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you get them good. Go pick up your merch. You know what I'm saying? Get your merch. Get your merch. You know, and it is what it is. When we do what we do, how we do it, make sure y'all get that, man. And we appreciate everybody for tuning in. And make sure y'all get ready for that podcast. And we is
Howdy.